This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injuries and additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome, you are entering the Stone Zone. Well, as promised, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has released 10,185 pages of records relating to the assassination of New York Senator Robert F. Kennedy as part of Executive Order 14176, signed by President Donald Trump, in which he pledged to release all of the documents pertaining to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King. I have publicly called on the President to extend that order to include all documents pertaining to the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan, a topic on which I am writing a book. But addressing today's releases, the released documents total over 229 PDF files, including FBI investigative records, State Department cables, witness accounts, and ballistic reports from the 1968 assassination in the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, California. You will recall that Senator Robert F. Kennedy was murdered on the night of his greatest political triumph. He had just won the California Democrat primary over Senator Eugene McCarthy. Now, those in Camelot say that had Robert Kennedy not been assassinated, he would have gone on to Chicago to be nominated. He would therefore then have defeated Republican nominee Richard Milhous Nixon. Unfortunately, that is incorrect, and here is why. In 1960, John F. Kennedy beat Richard Nixon by a razor-thin margin in an election in which John Kennedy carried every single southern state, still the solid Democratic South. By 1968, 8 years later, Robert Kennedy would not have carried a single southern state against Richard Nixon, had he even been nominated at all. You see, the convention delegates chosen by primary were a minority, and the Democrat National Convention in Chicago was under the firm control of President Lyndon Baines Johnson, and the most important votes, controlled by Chicago Mayor Richard J. Daley, would not have switched to Kennedy. They would have stuck with Vice President Hubert Humphrey, who ran in no primaries but went on to be nominated anyway. As far as today's releases are concerned, among the records are FBI interviews allegedly confirming Sirhan's premeditation with witnesses Henry Carrion and David Montellano reporting seeing Sirhan at a shooting range days before the assassination, evidently practicing with a revolver. Other FBI details show Sirhan's movements, including his presence at the hotel earlier that evening, suggesting deliberate planning. These records were drawn from the papers of Robert F. Kennedy as Attorney General, U.S. Senator, and his presidential campaign files, and also from biographer Gene Stein's papers. There's several problems with this narrative, just like the false narrative that is created by the release of the JFK documents, which was woefully inadequate. I believe 30% of the most important documents pertaining to John F. Kennedy's murderers still reside with the FBI, the Secret Service, the Internal Revenue Service, the State Department, and the Department of State. Here's the problem. There's no question that Sirhan was present. He was always in front of Senator Kennedy. He got off 8 shots, all 8 of which are accounted for. The problem is that none of those shots hit Robert Kennedy. Thomas Noguchi, perhaps the most famous coroner in the country, who was then the Los Angeles County coroner, says in his autopsy that Senator Robert Kennedy was killed by a bullet shot wound from his left rear of his skull, shot at point blank range. That means with the pistol right up against his head. I believe that Sirhan was shooting wildly as a diversion. There's also, strangely enough, his actions while incarcerated, where he wrote over and over again, "Kennedy must die, Kennedy must die, Kennedy must die." Clear sign that he was under the effects of some psycho control, probably MK Ultra. So these probes released today are meant once again to create a false narrative. I actually believe the shooter was a gentleman named Thane Eugene Caesar. He was a security guard in the Ambassador Hotel. He was hired for that position 1 week before the murder of RFK, and he resigned and returned to his native Philippines almost immediately afterwards. The ballistics do not meet the murder. The record includes descriptions of a number of shots fired and the bullet trajectories, with some witnesses' statements noting the chaotic environment which fueled speculation about inconsistencies. However, the National Archives release does not confirm claims of the second gunman, Eugene Thane Caesar, does not document the weapon in the possession of Sirhan as the primary weapon. Documents also reference an LAPD's special unit senator, which coordinated the investigation, detailing forensic analysis and chain of custody records for evidence like the gun and the bullets. These technical details provide researchers with a lot of raw data for further study. The release also highlights logistical aspects of the declassification process, with some pages scanned in black and white for efficiency, replacing the old color scans when legibility has been an issue. An additional 50 to 60,000 pages of RFK-related records still held by the FBI and the CIA were not included in the release as ordered by President Donald Trump. Now, if you've seen it, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., happens to be a friend of mine, has given an extraordinary interview on the murder of his father with, of all people, Mike Tyson. And he repeats many of the things that I have just told you, that Sirhan was always in front of Kennedy, that he was shooting wildly, seemingly as a diversion, but as confirmed by the coroner, Senator Robert Kennedy Sr. was shot from behind at point-blank range. Incredibly, YouTube took that interview with Mike Tyson down from the internet. It's very hard to find. I think Robert F. Kennedy is right in this regard. We will be continuing to report on this question. In the meantime, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia is now investigating Aaron Zelinsky. I know this guy. He was the prosecutor in my case when I was charged with lying to Congress when there was nothing to lie to Congress about. A claim, by the way, that was contradicted by the official final report of Robert Mueller's investigation. It's interesting that Zelinsky testified to Congress under oath, saying that he'd been pressured by higher-ups at the DOJ to go easy on me in sentencing. A Department of Justice Inspector General report investigating that claim by Mr. Zelinsky concluded it was absolutely false. So in other words, Aaron Zelinsky, the prosecutor, until recently an assistant U.S. attorney in Baltimore, lied under oath to Congress to further the narrative that the Attorney General and those under him had pressured the prosecutors in my case for a lenient sentence. Why hasn't he been prosecuted, by the way? He also altered the FBI interviews, known as a 302, with George Papadopoulos, essentially framing him. So I would say that it is Mr. Zelensky's turn in the barrel. Now, it is possible that the statute of limitations has run and Mr. Zelensky will not be prosecuted for his lies. On the other hand, I would contend that this is an ongoing conspiracy. And at a minimum, I and my good friend Mr. Prodopoulos will be filing a complaint with the Maryland State Bar to see if we can get Mr. Zelensky disbarred. It is time for justice. We have other perps, such as Andrew Weissman, who have their own problems. These are leftovers also from the Mueller investigation. We're going to fill you in on that when we come back. You're tuned in to the Stone Zone here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. We got some more politics coming right up for you, including the inside story on Letitia James and why her defense regarding serial mortgage fraud is a fugazi. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
The Stone Zone
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Are you a forward thinker? Then you need an HR and finance platform that thinks like you do. Workday is the AI platform that helps propel your organization, your workforce, and your industry into the future. Workday, moving business forever forward.
You need a vacation, so why not come play in LA? Fill your days with fun and let Los Angeles dazzle you with iconic landmarks, epic scenery, and stunning coastlines. And when the sun goes down, it's the perfect place to enjoy world-class dining and nightlife. Let play lead the way and soak up all this city has to offer. Start planning your LA getaway now at visitcalifornia.com.
We off? 30 seconds of carefree bliss. Oof, like wind in your hair carefree. Oh, like using Clorox Disinfecting All-Purpose Cleaner in the home carefree. Yes! Like dog slobbing on the coffee table and cleaning it with Clorox Carefree. He's on a roll now. Spit toothpaste on the faucet. You got it. You got it. Peanut butter on the light switch. Oh, spritz, spritz. Spritz, spritz. Clorox, man. Clean feels good.
Okay, we're back. Use as directed.
The Stone Zone. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You're back in the Stone Zone. This past week, we saw corrupt New York Attorney General Letitia James get caught up in serial mortgage fraud. I watched her on TV with veteran journalist Errol Lewis, where she told multiple lies. She lied about almost all of it. We're going to talk about that later with Sam Antar, the researcher who uncovered her serial mortgage fraud. The irony here, of course, is that she engaged in precisely the actions and activities that she falsely charged President Trump with last year in the so-called valuation trial. But it seems that there's now another DOJ bad actor, Andrew Weissman, perhaps the most corrupt federal prosecutor in U.S. history. He cut his teeth lying under oath to cover up mob murders in Brooklyn. Then he destroyed the Enron Corporation and their accountant, Arthur Andersen. He keeps pointing to that case like it's the gold standard, but he was actually reversed unanimously, 9-0 by the U.S. Supreme Court, and tongue-lashed for prosecutorial misconduct. He is behind numerous criminal acts dating back decades, where he imprisoned a man named Mike Sessa for life on crimes that there's a lot of evidence that Sessa didn't really commit. Weissman, as I say, destroyed Arthur Andersen in the 2000s, a central player in the Mueller gang. He's actually the man who wrote my indictment. He's also the man who arranged for the FBI to storm my home at 6 o'clock in the morning. I was arrested at 6:11, probably at 6:06. At 6:11, a producer at CNN texted a copy of my sealed indictment to one of my lawyers. And although it had no timestamps or court markings on it, if you looked at the metadata tags, it had the initials of the man who wrote it, Andrew Weissman. By the way, the leaking of a search or an arrest warrant prior to its execution is a felony. Now, according to Jason Goodman at Crowdsource, there's a reason to believe that Weissman has some mortgage issues himself. The story begins with a man named Leonard Toberoff. This character related Jeffrey Epstein, and Toberoff is Stephen Hoffenberg. I interviewed Hoffenberg for my own book on the Clintons. In April 2023, Weissman bought 2 condominiums from Mr. Toberoff with a $1 million mortgage from First Republic Bank. First Republic Bank then collapsed 5 days later. Weissman wrote the DOJ policy on financial crimes, was prosecuting fraud for most of his legal career. Looks to me that he learned a great deal from the criminals that he was allegedly prosecuting. Coming up, we are going to talk about the devastating revelations regarding New York Attorney General Letitia James. Big Tish seems to think she can lie her way out of the vast maze of sworn paperwork that proves that she has a decades-long history of lying to obtain mortgages. Virginia real estate lawyers say that the paperwork issue for Ms. James had been misrepresented to the lender, but on a separate loan application, according to Ms. James, she indicated that she did not intend to occupy the property in Virginia. That was a condition of her mortgage. She also said her mortgage agreement did not require her to do so. Those are, unfortunately, both lies. Whatever document she provided to the New York Times is not recorded anyplace, is not notarized. In my opinion, it's not real. I think it was never filed. You know, the cover-up is always worse than the crime. Letitia James is now being held to an interesting standard. She's the one who said that no one is above the law. Well, that includes you, Big Tish, and you're not going to be able to lie your way out of them. Last week, the head of the Federal Home Finance Agency, Bill Pulte, referred a case to the Justice Department for prosecution of mortgage fraud. It's a very detailed letter. By this point, it's out there on the internet. We're going to very shortly interview Sam Antar, the man who did the underlying research on Tish James. By the way, Sam Antar is not a Republican. He does not work for Donald Trump. I don't think he even supports Donald Trump, but he is committed to the truth. So, Letitia James, I really hope you're listening, because you can run, but you cannot hide. And now you're going to be held to the standard that you tried to say others should be held to. No one ever was prosecuted under the valuation law that you tried to send Donald Trump to jail for. Yes, you won a conviction, and yes, the fine grows every day, but guess what? You're going to be overturned on appeal, and you're going to be able to hear about the overturning of that appeal while you're sitting in a prison cell. So the investigative journalist Laura Loomer is claiming that she broke the Letitia James mortgage fraud story a long time ago. But that's not the way it went down. See, I like Laura Loomer. She's a friend of mine. She's a hardworking investigative journalist. Not quite sure why she has to take credit for everything. I said to her, you know, if the sun comes up tomorrow morning, you take credit for it. Now, what she did was to pull the New York State records from a state website and saw that what anyone could see, that Letitia James had gotten multiple mortgages over the years, claiming a 4-unit building that was actually a 5-unit building. Well, that's just a small part of the story, but it was Sam Antar, who joins us today, and Joel Gilbert, veteran investigative reporter and documentary filmmaker, who dug deeper. They're the ones who found out that she had one government HAMP loan that was not even available for properties with more than 4 units, and it required a hardship declaration at a time Letitia James was making $14,000 a month. It was also Joel Gilbert who found out that Letitia claimed her father was her husband in an earlier loan application. We're going to be laying all of that out for you today. We also starting to look at a shady foreclosure of purchase in 2008 in Martinsville, Virginia. We haven't even reported on that yet. Stand by, because the man who uncovered half of these incredible campaign irregularities, pattern of mortgage fraud, undisclosed rental income, and much, much more, Sam Antar, joins us right here in the Stone Zone. We give it to you truth. We give you the stone cold truth, I should say, here in the Stone Zone. Whatever you do, you're going to want to stand by for what's coming up.
The Stone Zone
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel or that white chocolate mocha. Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. 3 couples, 4 vacations, a lot to unpack. Watch The 4 Seasons, a new series starring comedy favorites Tina Fey, Steve Carell, Will Forte, Coleman Domingo, and more in a hilarious and heartfelt love letter to long-term relationships. Based on the original Alan Alda film. Watch The 4 Seasons, streaming now only on Netflix.
You guys, I just found the most incredible Mother's Day gift. It's called Goldbelly. Goldbelly is this amazing site where you can get the most iconic foods from restaurants all across the U.S., shipped anywhere in the country for free in time for Mother's Day. We're talking cakes from Ina Garten and Martha Stewart, Magnolia Bakery's famous banana pudding, and New York bagel brunches. Make Mother's Day perfect with Goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code MOM. That's Goldbelly.com, promo code MOM.
Faraday presenta Ojos con Alergia y Picazón contra el jardinero. Y el ganador es Faraday Extra Fuerte. Para aliviar la picazón de los ojos por alergia, actúa más rápido y supera a Claritin y Flonase aún a las 24 horas. Faraday, adelante.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back in the Stone Zone. As promised, we are focusing on the recent development in which William Pulte, who is the head of the Federal Home Finance Agency, has made a criminal referral to the U.S. Justice Department of New York Attorney General Letitia James. Mr. Pulte's letter of referral seems largely to be based on the research of a gentleman named Sam E. Antar. Sam Antar is a former certified public accountant who's had a very interesting career trajectory as a former chief financial officer of Crazy Eddie. You may remember them, a major consumer electronics chain in the Northeast. Mr. Antar was a key figure in one of the decade's largest security fraud schemes. After his conviction, he paid his debt to society. Mr. Antar redirected his expertise towards forensic accounting, leveraging his firsthand knowledge of financial fraud to help combat it. He has helped government agencies, law enforcement organizations, law firms and accounting firms, and independent investment research firms ferret out fraud. He has a very lively website, whitecollarfraud.com, where he posts the actual documents that back up everything he has claimed. Sam Antar, welcome to the Stone Zone.
Thank you, Roger, for having me on the air.
So in this most recent development, as you know, among those claims is that Letitia James, only last year, August of 2023, just weeks before putting President Donald Trump on trial in the so-called valuation trial, Letitia James signed a document with the mortgage company, a sworn document, in which she attested that she would move into a Virginia property on which she was seeking a mortgage within 60 days of the execution and closing of that mortgage. There's 2 problems with that. If she indeed did move to Virginia, as she said she was going to, well, under New York State law and the New York State Constitution, she would not be eligible to be New York State Attorney General, and actually, upon her leaving the state, the office would be immediately vacated. Or if she signed claiming that she would move but didn't move, and I think we understand that she didn't, well, then she committed fraud by signing this document. Now, she has defended herself, claiming that in a separate document, she said she wasn't going to live in the property, and she further said that the mortgage did not require her to do so. So who's right and who's wrong here? Are you right, Sam? Or do the documents deceive us, or is she lying?
She's lying, and I'll explain to you why. First of all, the sworn declaration that she had written, which was also, by the way, witnessed by Jennifer Levy, who headed the investigation into Trump. It was signed in her own office. Okay, that sworn declaration rules because that's the document that was filed with the mortgage. If there's another piece of paper, that only makes the case worse because assuming that piece of paper exists, okay, and we haven't seen it, nobody's produced it. The New York Times didn't even produce it. They said they got it. Okay, assuming that piece of paper exists, it adds to another level of inconsistent disclosures that she's made. At the end of the day, the mortgage was underwritten based upon her and her co-borrower both occupying the property. Now, she didn't occupy the property, and she claims her niece occupied the property. Still not good. Both parties had to occupy the property. That is the way the loan was underwritten, period.
Listen to Letitia James herself, because I want to make sure we get this completely right. Listen to the Attorney General.
Let me just say to all New Yorkers and to all Americans, the allegations are baseless. The allegations are nothing more than a revenge tour. And as you mentioned, my office was successful in securing a $454 million judgment against Donald Trump and others for exaggerating the value of his assets. He engaged in a pattern and practice of fraud. And the interest is accruing each and every day while the case is on appeal in the First Department. It's important that individuals know that this is nothing more than the continuation of the tour. He went after law firms, universities, immigrants, women. Thousands of federal employees right now are unemployed. Our government is in chaos and in disarray. Medicaid, Social Security, CFPB, and the list goes on and on and on.
They always have to wave that Medicaid, Social Security flag, which is a complete fraud. Donald Trump has made no proposals to cut either one of them. Sam, your reaction to that brazen lying?
Well, first of all, I had written about it months before you even contacted me, or a couple of months at least. All right? The only reason why I'm on this show is because you stumbled on my work. I have nothing to do with the Trump administration. I don't work for them. I don't get paid for them. Nobody told me what to post or what to do. I did it myself, and this is the work that I do. This is the life I have chosen. After Crazy A's, I have 25 years experience on the other side of the law. Okay, I know every trick in the book. I know every trick that's not in the book, and I also know every trick that she's thinking of doing. So this is just classic misdirection.
By the way, I do want to say to the Attorney General, you have an open invitation to appear here on the Stone Zone anytime to rebut anything that we report here. We would welcome you, and we would treat you respectfully and give you your chance to speak. In fact, maybe you want to come on with Sam Antar, and you guys could slug it out. But I've read the actual documents. The strength of your website, Sam, whitecollarfraud.com, is that you link to the actual document, the certified document. I'd also say to Jonah E. Bromwich of the New York Times, according to your story, the Attorney General's office sent you a separate mortgage application in which she did not say that she intended to move to the property, and that she claims that the mortgage did not require her to do so. I would ask you to send us or post those documents publicly because they were never notarized. They've never been filed in any place. In fact, nobody's ever seen them but you. I don't think they're legal.
I'm sorry to have interrupted you. They have no legal meaning, even if they existed.
So, I mean, it is saying this is all just paperwork as your defense. I don't think anybody's going to buy it. By the way, I believe the reason she bought this property is because Letitia James believed that she would be Attorney General in the Kamala Harris administration. That's the reason I think she purchased this property. But Sam, let's take a step back. This is not her first exercise of mortgage fraud, is it?
No, when you do forensic accounting work, as I have done for a quarter of a century, you look for what's called a pattern of inconsistency. And in this case, Letitia James's pattern of inconsistency, dates back to 1983, which who has appeared on your show, Joel Gilbert, uncovered with the husband and wife on the mortgage, but father and daughter on the deed. So she's been doing this she's been putting out false documents for over 40 years. Now, even her most recent document, because I was on Acris doing research, that's the New York City database of deeds and property records, even her most recent mortgage says stamped 1 to 2 family. Okay, it's a 4-family house. Okay, every single mortgage document she has filed, okay, in New York City or New York State is false. Every single one of them misrepresent the number of units. Her building is 1 to 4 units, okay, on the mortgage documents, but the certificate of occupancy says 5. And I think she told the New York Times, well, that was the other owner. No. You see, the certificate of occupancy is issued by the Department of Buildings. It's not an optional document that another owner has. And if she really believes that kind of bullshit, she shouldn't be the Attorney General of New York because she doesn't understand the law.
Well, the first mortgage, she was 24 years old. It appears to me what she did was to secure the mortgage using her father's balance sheet, her father's financials, claiming that he was her husband. At least that's what it says on the mortgage and the mortgage application. But then on the title, it correctly lists them as father and daughter. That's the first act of fraud. And then, as you point out, Joel Gilbert discovered that she received a HAMP loan, another federal loan for which you had to have 5 units.
4 units or less.
Right, 4 units or less. But explain to us how she's in violation there.
Okay. HAMP was a program set up for people that had fallen behind of their mortgages because of financial hardship. And she fell behind conveniently, she fell behind $30,000 on her payments, even though she was making over $150,000 a year. Okay, she fell behind. She files the HAMP application. Now, Joe looked at the HAMP application as it related to the HAMP guidelines. And guess what? The HAMP guidelines, 4 or less unit. Her building says 5. On top of that, building upon Joel's work, because he did very good research, and I commend him for it, building upon his work, I further noticed that there were handwritten notes on the HAMP documents trying to retroactively fix the unit problem by saying this building can potentially be 4 to 6 units, and handwritten notes. And these handwritten notes were belatedly written at about the time that the documents were filed. In other words, it's after all the due diligence and everything else was done. So in this case, it's deliberate. Now, people make mistakes. You make mistakes. I make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But you're talking about here, remember I said a pattern of irregularities, 40 years worth of false documents.
Yeah, and this the 2023 Virginia mortgage is missing from her 2023 ethics filing. She also filed no Virginia homestead exemption, which she would have filed if it was going to be her principal residence.
Right, nor did the co-owner of the property file an exemption. In fact, there was a report out in the paper that person that's occupying the property now only started to occupy it in the last year, which is way past the requirement of the mortgage that both parties have to occupy it within 60 days.
Also, New York state law requires disclosure of any large debt unless the property is your sole residence, which James now says it is not.
Well, that's the other problem that she has. She had on that Virginia property we're talking about, she did not disclose the debt or the property. But on another Virginia property, which you and I discussed previously, she purchases a property for $130,000 or so, takes a mortgage of $109,000 or so. The property is disclosed as an investment property on a New York financial disclosures, but in 2023, 2 mortgages in excess of the value of the property were disclosed on a New York State financial disclosures. That led me to go back to the property records, and guess what I found? the mortgage that she took when she purchased the property, the $109,000 mortgage, was never filed in the New York State financial disclosures. The two mortgages that were in the New York State financial disclosures were never filed in the property record. Were they unrecorded mortgages? A million red flags ring out, but the most important red flag is she valued her own property at $100,000 to $150,000, and the total of the mortgages, whether they were filed or not, whether they were disclosed or not, is $510,000. Who gets a 2.5 times, 2.7 times loan to value ratio?
No one. Once again, the Attorney General says she will not be silenced, and we respect that. You have an open invitation, Madam Attorney General, to appear here on the Stone Zone with Sam Antar. You can go toe-to-toe with him on these documents that you have indisputably signed. And Jonah Bromwich with the New York Times, if you want to join us as well, that'd be great. You can perhaps post the supposed mortgage application in which she claimed she would not be moving to the property, and which she claimed that the mortgage would not require her to do so. I won't be holding my breath. Folks, you're tuned into the Stone Zone. We're talking to Sam Antar. It was Sam Antar along with veteran journalist and documentary maker Joel Gilbert, who uncovered all of the documentary evidence of serious mortgage fraud. There's a lot more to the story. We haven't gotten into sexual assault by the chief of staff of the Attorney General or the serial campaign finance fraud that's still under investigation. You're tuned into the Stone Zone. Don't miss a second. We'll be right back.
The Stone Zone
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place. For changes big and small. Loud or quiet. Find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Principles. Are there limits to the U.S. government's debt growth? What will happen if the debts are not curtailed? What should policymakers or investors do? Those are urgent questions that legendary investor and New York Times bestselling author Ray Dalio addresses in his new book, How Countries Go Broke: The Big Cycle. The book comes out in June and is available for pre-order today, wherever books are sold.
Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man.
id Software presents Doom: The Dark Ages. Available May 15th on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC. Pre-order now.
Rated M for mature.
That moment when you realize your skincare is actually working. That's Rodan and Fields, the #1 female dermatologist-founded skincare brand in the U.S. Designed by 2 dermatologists who don't just know women's skin, they know how to formulate for it. Rodan and Fields, love what you see. Tap the banner or visit rodanandfields.com/Spotify to get your exclusive welcome offer.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're talking to Sam E. Antar. He is the researcher and former certified public accountant who has ferreted out the serial mortgage fraud by New York Attorney General Letitia James. She seems to me, according to the New York Times, in an incredible interview she did with Errol Lewis. If you're listening, Mr. Lewis, you should have Mr. Antar on to provide a counterpoint to the Attorney General, because I believe she told a number of lies during her interview with you.
That wasn't an interview. That was an infomercial. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It looked like she was calling in a favor, didn't it? Last time I saw Errol Lewis, he was defending the integrity of former New York Governor Eliot Spitzer. So we know how that went down. So at your own expense, you've uncovered James' undisclosed mortgages, her principal residence declaration in Virginia, which is a fraud, but you've also dug into her taxpayer-funded jet travel and her seeming abuse of taxpayer dollars for political purposes. Tell us about that.
Okay, starting at around the end of 2020, all the way through to about early 2022. I might have the date slightly wrong, okay? She took about 7 jet trips, private jet trips, with taxpayer-funded dollars, of which about 3 or 4 overlapped campaign events. Now, I've foiled that information. I am waiting to see what it says. But irregardless, they occurred. There was an overlap between the campaign events and that jet travel. Now, what's interesting is that nobody else, going back to 2014, used that private jet company in New York State. In the entirety of New York State's $1 trillion spent during that period, nobody else used that private jet company. And when New York State stopped paying for a private jet, her campaign started to pay the bill.
Seems to me you might have, there's multiple problems there. I noticed on one occasion that she took and she paid for a charter jet from an aviation company that hasn't worked for any other government agency. They didn't file any flight plan. They didn't file any contract. But it happens to be on the same day that her campaign paid an Airbnb for a Martha's Vineyard beachfront condo. So it looks to me like she was junketeering on the taxpayer's dime. I want to thank our guest, Sam Antar, for joining us today. There's a lot more. This story is not over yet. We still have the question of Letitia James' cover-up of the serial sexual assaults by her chief of staff, a man named Ibrahim Khan. The victim's claims have, in fact, been substantiated in the court system, although Attorney General James has at least temporarily gotten herself dismissed from the lawsuit by the victim. I suspect we're going to see more in this realm. Folks, thanks for joining us today in the Stone Zone. Here we talk news, history, politics, style, and, of course, food. I want to thank my guest, Sam Antar, for joining us today. And last but not least, I want to wish you and your family the happiest and holiest of holidays. God bless you and Godspeed. Until we meet again, thanks for joining us in the Stone Zone.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?